worldwide, there is period poverty.
Yeah.
Women and people that menstruate are unable to access proper, clean, hygienic period products. There's also this problem with water sanitation and hygiene in the rural areas where there's no like running water, there are no privacy, good bathrooms. People still have their baths in the stream. People still use stream water. So it's not practically possible to have good period hygiene.
When people are in coma, do they see their period?
Yes. When people come to school to share pad, they should not take the men away.
Yeah.
Yes, it begins with everybody should speak about menstruation. They should call it periods. Now, because people don't talk about period, there are also other diseases that are tied to how your period is, how long is it, how heavy it is, that they can't talk about because nobody talks about periods.
Yeah. So what you're saying is the tissue, the uterine tissues, wherever they are, wherever they have strolled to, will do the job that they're supposed to do at the uterus at the due time. So whether it's in your ear is going to remove blood.
Yes. So that's what is
endometriosis. I need a moment to take that in. Hello and welcome back to the Talk No One Talks About, where we bring you very uncomfortable, unpopular conversations, one episode at a time. Today we'll be discussing cleanliness and uncleanliness, the politics of menstrual hygiene. I will not be doing this alone. I have here with me Precious, who is trained and very equipped for this conversation. So Precious, tell us your name and what you do.
Hi. My name is Wagla Precious. I'm a medical doctor. I'm also an early career researcher, and I volunteer with Partner with Love and Network for Safeguarding Women's Health and Rights.
Okay, that's great. So I have a couple of questions for this discourse. Like, we're having this entire conversation around hygiene and the conceptions of cleanliness and uncleanliness tied to menstrual experiences, and to people who see periods. So I want to ask you, particularly given your experience, given like working on like menstrual health and health related issues, why would you say that menstruation is seen or perceived as unclean?
Okay, menstruation is perceived as unclean, like it has been perceived as unclean for a long time, but it's due to social, cultural, and religious factors. There have always been this stigma that we have been fighting against. So socially, like there's stigma, there's shame, culturally, where different cultures say, when you're menstruating, you can't cook, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then like even religious, like especially for religious women, you can't pray sometimes in some religions, you can't enter certain places when you're menstruating, you can't cook, you can't sleep on the same bed with your partner, things like that. So there's always been this shame. People shouldn't know you're menstruating, you can't complain, it's normal. So
how would you say that these misconceptions affect the mental and physical well-being of people who see periods?
Okay, so we can start with the psychological stress. There's always going to be stress when you're on your period, especially for impressionable young girls. So they are going to be afraid. Am I going to stay in this chair? Am I going to be staying? Can I go to school? Will I be able to go to work?
Especially with like people who have like heavy
periods
and
other period-associated diseases or symptoms. So there would always be this stress, and recurrent stress every month would lead to like depression, anxiety, and then it just goes on from there. And then physically, there's always like physical problems when there's poor period hygiene, which is very common. So there's always going to be like physical problems like infections or other things due to period. Okay. And now because people don't talk about period, there are also other diseases that are tied to how your period is, how long is it, how heavy it is, that they can't talk about because nobody talks about periods.
Yeah.
So there's always physical
because
and
of the culture of silence.
Yes, exactly.
My next question is what are the most common menstrual health related issues you've had to navigate or deal with or experience in your profession? Okay,
menstrual health related issues.
Yeah.
So there are issues that occur due to period poverty, and then there are other issues that are related to menstruation, right? So for issues that occur due to period poverty, like poor period hygiene products. So there can be recurrent urinary tract infections. Okay, I'm going to start with the premise that in Nigeria, in fact worldwide, there is period poverty.
Yeah.
Women and people that menstruate are unable to access proper, clean, hygienic period products.
Yeah.
Yes. So people use insane things like rags, leaves. And
leaves.
Yes, dried leaves.
Wow.
Okay, it's hard for you to imagine, but if you think about girls that are in IDP camps,
Yes.
people that
Absolutely.
are displaced, people that have been in places where there are floods, besides the fact that period products are expensive, they are not seen as a necessity. There are very few people are going to go to IDP camps and how many and how often?
Yeah, because people see their periods every month.
Exactly. So when people use unhygienic products or use limited period products, there are going to be health problems. So health problems such as urinary tract infection. And then when it becomes recurrent, it can affect your kidneys. And then there can also be infections into the reproductive tract. Yes. And then rashes, like, I don't know if there was a time there was like news about fake period products and then people having reactions. So there'll be like widespread rashes and hives and all of that. But then there are also medical problems.
The hives are in the
genitalia.
Exactly.
So itchy, discharge, even fungal infections due to poor period products, bacterial vaginosis, very common because people do not have proper period products and do not have proper period hygiene.
Yeah.
Then we are going to talk about other medical problems that are linked to how people see their periods. So, for example, PCOS and polycystic ovarian syndrome, their periods are very erratic. They cannot say, I'm going to see my period now. They can't count their cycles. People with very heavy period, fibroids, endometriosis. So, the conversation about menstruation and the politics around it is life-saving, because people cannot diagnose or they cannot even present early because people don't talk about the problems that they face with their period.
So I want to ask now, particularly in cases of like low income areas, poverty-ridden places, or like you said, IDP camps, rural communities where like there's literally no light, no water, where NGOs can trickle into and not so often. What would you say the realities are? Or like you said that you volunteer with like PAD organizations.
Yes.
That means you do like the groundwork where you go to communities.
We have members that do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like what is the general feedback as to, when I got here, this was the reality of these women. This was the reality of these people who see periods, and this is how their struggle was, and this is how we came through for it.
Okay. So research has it that 80% of Nigerian women struggle with having accessibility to period products.
8%? 80?
Yes. So, and period poverty is not even just for low income, like even rich countries struggle with being able to access period products. Now, people in low income areas and poverty, first there's so much more pressure culturally to not speak about it because they are not even as enlightened as others. They're usually not. So there's the pressure of that, and then there's no money to access this period product or even having good products in reaching the rural areas. But then besides that, there's also this problem with water sanitation and hygiene in the rural areas where there's no like running water, there are no privacy, good bathrooms. People still have their baths in the stream. People still use stream water. So it's not practically possible to have good period hygiene. So people in IDP camps, like, they're almost like forgotten because there'll be nowhere to even buy period products, even if you have the money, and they don't have the money. So when we go, because Partner with Love, most of our outreaches have been in the north, and the northern part of Nigeria, they have more people of lower socioeconomic class. So we see that a lot of people struggle with period poverty, and majority of our beneficiaries are secondary school students. Yes, because adolescents, like, of course, they're not even working, and people that are working can't afford it. So what happened to people that are not working? And then we see, and then they always complain of period inaccessibility to period products. We even had to talk about reusable pads, we had to talk about, okay, is this better? Is it more sustainable to use reusable pads? And yes, reusable pads are more sustainable. I'm a champion reusable pads.
Same
but
here.
then
Same
what
here.
happens when there's no accessible water? Because then you're back to square one.
You have to clean it.
Yes, it has to be properly washed.
Your health determines or depends on how clean those things are. So I think I've pretty much shared that sentiment with you as someone who has, of course, volunteered in a lot of social projects, especially with young girls and queer people. And I've also done like the field work to go to communities, rural communities, go to government schools and talk to them. I always carry like a health practitioner, like a nurse or like a doctor. And then you do the talk, the medical question answering, and then I do like the other parts and we give out the pads. And there's been times where I've gone back to the drawing board and like, oh, I see that it's an issue. I see that is an issue that needs to be worked on. But this thing that we do where we go out once in a while is not sustainable at all. And you never touch the same place twice because like there's a whole lot of places. And I'm thinking, okay, I came here this month. Who comes there tomorrow? Who comes there next month, right? For the people who will see their period again next month, right? Exactly. So it's like charity, but it's like a solution, but it's so short-sighted. Yes. It's not sustainable. And I'm always looking for like sustainable ways to like provide development to issues or like situations that we face. So I'm so glad that you said that. But would you say, since you've just said that you champion for reusable pads, right? Have you ever used one?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so they are gaining traction in Nigeria.
No, of course, there are NGOs that just try to subsidize reusable pads.
Okay.
Yes, I'm not sure of their names now, but I've worked with a few of them.
Okay.
Especially like collaboration with Padha.
Okay.
So it's gaining traction. People are teaching people how to use them, how to clean them.
Oh, okay.
There are people that also champion menstrual cups, which is also more sustainable.
Yeah, but like, have you ever used the menstrual cup?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. I keep wondering how it works because like it's a cup.
Yes, but it's silicone and it's foldable. So it's basically
like a tampon.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Great. So I would have loved to get into like the health complications of what we've discussed.
Yeah.
And I realize that you've already done that. So I want to ask you, is there something else that you've not mentioned health-wise that's like the consequence of this inaccessibility or like the poor menstrual hygiene? You've talked about hives, you've talked about urinary tract infection, you've talked about
infections in the
rashes,
system,
yes. You've talked about herpes. No, not herpes.
No.
Not herpes.
Toxic shock syndrome.
Yeah, toxic. Please tell them.
Okay, so toxic shock syndrome is a bacterial infection. Menstrual toxic shock syndrome is usually caused when someone uses a period product and leaves it in for too long. So the beginning is that everyone's supposed to change their period products every 3 to 4 hours. That's what's hygienic. That's what is standard. But then because people don't have it, they keep it for longer. People don't know, they keep it for longer. And then what happens is that there's bacterial infection and then it spreads into the blood and then it becomes like this very rare but very serious infection where it gets to the blood, there's fever, sometimes there's loss of consciousness, they break into hives and then their skin erodes. It's a very serious complication, but it occurs, especially people that use tampons. You have to take it out often.
So I'm curious to know when these symptoms were now linked to the periods, because the standard thing in Nigeria, would I say standard? There's a thing with our health sector where most of the time people are our health practice, not sector, where most of the time people are dealing with like the symptoms of situation without like the root cause of it.
Yes.
It's like, oh, we're dealing with fever, we're dealing with like the skin condition, we're dealing like other things, but do they know, how often do people know that it's the pad that's triggering that?
It's not very common. People don't know. So that's why we are talking about it. You have to change your period products very often.
Okay, so how do these sanitary issues and complications differ for people with like disabilities or like specific medical conditions? I'm talking people who are probably
hard in hearing, visually impaired.
Yeah. And also people who might be incapacitated medically.
Yes,
So how do they manage?
So we already say that period poverty or inaccessibility to like period hygiene, poor period hygiene is common, but it's worse with people with disabilities. Even when there are like programs that are trying to help women and young girls to be accessible, there's usually no inclusion for people with disabilities. In every sector in Nigeria, basically.
Yeah.
So it just begins with one person. It begins with, okay, let's say someone that is visually impaired. How is someone that is visually impaired going to deal with bathrooms that are not inclusive of them? And there are not even private bathrooms that think about like period products a lot in schools in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So people that are visually, people that are physically, I can't even physically take themselves to the bathroom. How can they regularly change their period products? It's not possible here because we are not thinking about them.
Yeah.
So then it begins with making inclusive spaces for people with disability, for women and people that menstruate with disabilities.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to think of all the disabilities as much as possible. People that are visually impaired, people that are physically cannot. Then there are also women that have very serious, it's called very heavy periods. So they always have to use the bath. Means they always have to use water. There has to be running water. So our first thought would be inclusion in the way that we build bathrooms, inclusion in the way that we design them, having in mind that there are people that menstruate that are also with disabilities.
Okay. So what would you say about medical conditions? I'm talking people like in the psych wards. I'm talking people who are in coma. When people are in coma, do they see their periods?
They could. Like coma is a very broad thing. So yes.
Okay, because I always wondered. So I'm talking about people who are like incapacitated.
Yes.
Who have lost like mobility.
Mobility.
Yeah, who have lost mobility or like consciousness.
Yeah.
How is it different for them? How is it more complicated for them? And how do like health workers like you come in?
Okay, so usually people that are incapacitated they need nursing care. They need like 24 hours care. But that puts them in a spot where they are not able to do what they're supposed to do as often as we are saying people should. So it puts them at a higher risk. Already they are going to face multiple complications. If you can't move, you're already like prone to bed sores. So that's another bed sores. So like when you lie at a place and then parts of your body starts to become injured just because you're lying at a spot. So it's like pressure.
Injured?
Yes, you get
like internally?
No, externally.
Oh.
So you have injuries just because you're at a spot for a very long time. So that's why in the hospital to see that people that have strokes or are in coma, they have to turn them. They have to because they can't stay at a place at a spot. So you're already dealing with you're also if you're admitted for a long period of time, that's nosocomial infections just because you're in the hospital.
Yeah.
So they're already like prone to these infections. So if they don't properly have period hygiene and they don't have nursing care and good medical care, it's just going to compound the problems that we have discussed. So yes, people that are immobilized, they need more care, especially when they're on their period. And to me, I think that what is sustainable is just having like someone that is incapacitated will not be able to use like tampons and all. So it's most likely pads.
How would you say, again, as someone who has worked in like the public health sector and like with organizations and partnered or volunteered, how would you say that this public health campaigns and projects, how would you think that you are working to like change the narrative around menstrual health, and what more do you think can be done?
Thank you very much for that question. So
it's giving model on a pageant.
What I can say is that a lot of non-governmental organizations are trying to make period products more accessible, but it is not sustainable because, as we have already discussed, you can't go to the same place twice, and these young ladies and women are going to see their period every month. It's not going to depend on when you can provide period products for them. So the beginning is with health policy. It has to, like, government interference, like government projects are limited, but that's where it begins. It begins with health policy. Are period products going to be subsidized? Are they going to be free in schools? we are going to start with pushing health, because that's the only way that we can have sustainability in managing period poverty. And now this does not like take away from all the work that non-government, because okay, the health policies are not there. So people would always donate. Like, it doesn't stop. People should donate. More people should donate period products. More people should talk about the health policies. Like, there needs to be health education. Because, okay, some people can buy one pad and they just think, I'll use it for the whole day. And sometimes they can afford to buy more, but they don't know. So, like, we have
and
the
they
health...
say they don't have heavy flows.
Yes, and say, oh, I don't have heavy flows. I'm not going to get it. I'm going to use one pad for the whole day. So, besides the health policy, there's supposed to be health education.
Yeah.
And then, like, in collaboration with other non-governmental organizations, schools, communities, even in our religious places, like, people should talk about menstruation more. It starts with having, like, research-based points. When people come to school to share pad, they should not take the men away.
Yeah.
Yes, it begins with everybody should speak about menstruation. They should call it periods. People should not hide.
Yeah.
People should not be ashamed.
It's not a woman only conversation.
It's not a sickness. It's not. It's normal. It's physiological. So it starts with health education from a very early age in our communities, in our religious, in our homes, and then pushing for proper health policies from the government, and then in collaboration with non-governmental organizations. That's what can provide sustainable, a sustainable solution to period poverty, as well as bringing up, as we have said, sustainable products. Because if we have good access to water, then we can really champion reusable pads. We should still champion them regardless, because some people have access to running water.
Yeah.
So, sustainable products, menstrual cups. Really, people have the idea that reusable pads are dirty. How are you going to? You can't wash it well.
Yeah.
Yes, and all of that.
Okay, so let's talk PCOS and endometriosis and like other related menstrual health or menstrual hygiene conditions, right? Again, I've said it earlier, it's a Nigerian thing in our health culture to deal with symptoms. Like, oh, I have a headache, and then we treat the headache, not the cause of the headache. I'm running a fever, and then we're treating the fever, and then you just think, oh, it's typhoid, right? You're not thinking, what is my body telling me with this typhoid? We're not thinking, what is the root cause? So like most of the times, and I think you also mentioned how it's so difficult to have like early diagnosis because of that. How do you think like that? How is it getting better to have like early diagnosis of stuff like PCOS
and endometriosis?
Yes, fibroids and all of that, and how it
fibroids.
relates to like your periods.
Okay, so I'm going to begin with what they are, because I see that a lot of people even mistake one for the other.
Yeah.
So what is endometriosis? Endometriosis is when parts of your uterus is somewhere it's not supposed to be. So it can be anywhere.
Like it shatters.
Just a part, a tissue.
Oh,
it can
okay.
be in your ovary. It can be in your fallopian tube. It's not supposed to be there. So when you're on your period, it bleeds wherever it is. It has...
Okay,
it goes,
the uterus.
The piece of the uterus that is not where it's supposed to be. So usually menstruation, the layer of your uterus that bleeds, that's menstruation, right?
Okay.
Now a piece of it is not in the uterus.
So that piece externally will be bleeding.
Exactly. That is what endometriosis is. So let's say it's in your ovaries, you're going to bleed into your ovaries. Let's say it's in your umbilicus, your navel, you're going to bleed externally. Yes.
There are people who...
Exactly. Some people bleed from their nose. So they have epistaxis.
What's epistaxis?
Bleeding from your nose.
It's not related to periods, right?
It is. That's the whole point. It happens cyclically when you're on your period. So when you're on your period, just the way when you're on your period, those ectopic or those tissues that where they're not supposed to be start to bleed. So that's what is endometriosis.
So what you're saying is the tissue, the uterine tissues, wherever they are, wherever they have strolled to, will do the job that they are supposed to do at the uterus at the due time. So whether it's in your ear is going to remove blood.
Yes. So that's what is endometriosis.
I need a moment to take that in.
Well, that's what endometriosis is. And it's very different from PCOS. And they are all menstrual related, but they are very different.
Okay, so can we get like details on PCOS?
So PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And what happens is very technical, but as easy as I can make it. During ovulation, your body or your ovary is supposed to release an egg. A lot to mature, but it's supposed to release one. But then sometimes there's too many eggs are getting mature at the same time. So there's a hormonal imbalance, and it now increases androgen, like hormones that are not supposed to be there. Let me see that. There's some hormones that are more in males, and then those hormones start becoming more than what they're supposed to be. So what does that do? It sort of impedes menstruation. So now, what is the normal menstrual cycle? 28 to 35 days. They don't have that. While going through like other symptoms like hirsutism, so they have like masculine distribution of hairs, facial hairs, and then very long months with no periods. And then this period comes anytime you want, and it's heavy.
Yeah.
So PCOS is a lot. Even the reason why people talk about it a lot now is because it's also linked to infertility. So that, of course, is going to...
because that benefits the patriarchy.
So everybody's going to talk about that. But that's what PCOS is. It's not a death sentence. It doesn't even mean that if you have PCOS, you will not be able to conceive or anything. That's not what it is. It's just usually hormonal imbalance. It's very complicated. It's linked to insulin. It's linked to a lot of things, but it's hormonal imbalance. Now, but because you don't know and you can't calculate your menstrual cycle, you can just go to work and you're state.
Okay, so
and you can go, yes.
I want you to get into other conditions like PCOS and...
Okay, so then there's fibroids, uterine fibroids.
Okay.
So like with fibroids, there's a growth. It's not cancerous in the ovary. So there's fibroids, and then there's endomyosis. The point is those are growths. But because they're in the uterus and they're not supposed to be there, they cause very painful periods.
Okay.
So they cause very painful periods, and as well infertility, which is why a lot of Nigerians talk about it. Okay. So there's heavy periods that you won't be able to go to school, you won't be able to go to work. And that is going to affect your productivity. Yeah, so those are some...
This has been a very enlightening conversation. I've learned a lot. Thank you very much. And I'm sure you have too. I want you to leave us with something, right? I want us to have something practical for the guests to go home with, right? So we've talked a lot about periods, and I think that's one thing has circled back. You would understand your cycle and your period back if you could get a hang of it, if you could get a hang of how it works or the date or what to expect. So when it's not proper, you know that, okay, now this is disturbing, I should probably go and get this checked. And I know that there's been like a rise of applications that people use, but I also started to learn that if like a lot of you don't have space on your phones to get these apps. But I want you to tell us, there's this health feature on like an iPhone. I'm not saying that everyone uses one. I'm just saying that if you do, can you tell how people can, do you know the feature? Do you know the feature? You use it? Use it to track your period, right? Okay, so can you give our audience that something, how they can use that app to the feature on the iPhone?
The feature on the iPhone is the same feature on other menstrual apps.
But this one you don't have to download it.
Yes, but you don't have to download it. It's on your health application. And then they're going to ask you questions. How long are your periods? Duration of your periods? How long is your cycle? Like when you see your period now, how long before you see it again? And then you give these information, and they use it to sort of predict when you're going to see your next period, when you're going to ovulate. And there's also features for you to put symptoms like if you're spotting,
if you have a headache,
if you're dizzy, or if your periods are even too heavy, because that's even another health problem when you start getting anemic because of your periods. So what you do is like you impute, okay, I saw my period today. And then even if you don't have any idea, impute, I saw my period today. I feel this way, according to you. Just tap when you see your period. And then when you see your period, like all the days you see your period, when you see your period next, you're going to also impute that. And then it's going to, after like a few months, it's going to roughly be able to predict when next you'll be seeing your period. You have information about... you're going to have information about, is it longer than normal? Is it shorter than normal?
Is it abnormal?
Yes, is it abnormal? And
then hormonal issues.
Exactly. But then I also have a personal experience with that app. So there's a period where I didn't see my period for a while. And because I knew what it was and I knew what it was, but I wasn't going to put that in the app like, okay, I know what it is. The app is also able to say, oh, you've not seen your period for a long time. You should take this information and go to your doctor. And then they send you the file.
But they send you the file?
Yes, and they tell you can download the file, and then you say, okay.
You say you should get that. So I just remember to do this because, again, some of us are very terrible with numbers and calculations. I am. And I decided to learn to use the app. I just know, I think sometime last month or 2 months ago, I was like, let me try this thing. Let me try it. And because I always tell people, I always knew that I had like irregular periods. And I used to be like, my period came this time, so maybe some other time. And I have like heavy flow. So since I couldn't calculate it or anything, it just hits me anywhere. It's like during a certain time, I now don't wear like white pants like I'm wearing now. Because if it comes, it's not playing, it's not telling you, I'm here. It's just rain on me. So I started to use the app and I was like, oh, this is really fascinating. I like how, and after the first month, he told me, your period will come 3rd of next month. And I was like, I kept waiting.
And it's a range. Yes, it's not, oh, you must come this day. You get warning.
Yeah, like, I said waiting. A few days. So like that day, my period came. I was like, wait, this works.
Yes, it does.
This works. So yeah, I think we should all do that. It makes your life a little bit better, if anything, and it can help you with early detection and give you, like you said, it can give you like a file, something, because you're inputting all of your data there. And even if you're tired or whatever, just go there. I think it's also an app that calculates like your steps you take. It's not just your period, it's just your general well-being health app, right? So yeah, this has been so exciting, Precious.
Thank
you. So good to have you here, and with your wealth of experience in the medical field and with like social works. Thank you very much for this. It was really fun. Would you like to leave something else for the guests?
Well,
tell them that they should watch our podcast.
Yes.
Tell them that they should tell us what their problems are with their periods.
Yes, you can send questions to the talk that no one talks about, and contribute to eliminating period poverty.
Tell us your questions Nigeria. In our comment section. Don't be shy. But tell us in the comment section. We like to see, everybody wants to see, because we can also, the thing with having open conversations is we all get to learn. People do not necessarily have to be in a close circle, like to learn from it. As we are having this conversation and we're putting them out there in the public, right? Do your best to contribute to the period conversation. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for coming. Thank you so much for watching. Please say bye to the audience.
Bye.
Till the next episode. It's me, Faye. Bye.
Bye.